יתברך וישתבח, יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, יתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה לעילא ולעילא, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. היי די 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 היי די די We are going to move to page 146. חדשות ציון תהיה ונזכה כולנו במהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
Page 146.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו, והארנו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחל לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
If you have a tallis, now is the time to gather those fringes around your finger. If you don't have a tallis, you can make a gentle fist in your lap. And perhaps if you are a shamus, you might find someone who is in charge of technicalities and see if we know why that ringing sound is happening. Just to put it out there. But for all the rest of us, we gather these tzitzit around one finger. These tzitzit are reminders of the commandments, which is another way of saying they are reminders tangibly of how we intend to live and how we intend to live in the following year. I invite you, with these physical reminders wrapped around your finger, to call to mind one commitment you want to deepen into in this new year, and one tangible, real, physical way that you will make that true in your life. Not ephemeral, not some distant ideal, one way that you will remind yourself of who you intend to be in the coming year. On page 148.
כי אל פועל ישועתתה וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ולידך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל בכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם להוד על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת אמת.
We move forward and turn to page 162. And at this time, I would like to invite Andrea Bernstein and Liz Shallett to begin making their way up to the bima. They'll speak shortly. But before then, we turn to the Mika mocha. Most of the prayers that we say are about the future. May we be redeemed. May we be safe. May we be made whole, restored. But the rabbis note that Mika mocha is different because we are giving praise for what has happened. We give thanks for the redemptions that have come. And we give thanks looking back to that story of parted waters, the story of the liberation out of Egypt. Which is to say, sometimes when we feel like there are no miracles around, the blessed thing is to look back. The blessed thing is to look back and say, where in our lives, where in the lives of the ones who came before us, were there miracles? So I invite you to call to mind one thing, just one thing that feels like a miracle you want to give thanks for on this day. In your life, in our collective lives, we sing for these things. May they be our guide into the future. And 164, rise as you're able.
Kuma Bezrat Yisrael, Uftekinu Mecha, Yehuda veYisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Da Yisrael. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Agit Tehilatacha. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach, Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chastei Avot Imahot, Umevi Gehula Livnei V'nehem, L'man Shemo B'Yahava, Zochereinu L'chaim, Melech Hafetz B'chaim, V'kodvenu B'sefer HaChaim, Le'mancha Elohim Chaim, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Bal Gevurot, Umidom Elach, Melech Meimit Umekayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Micha Mocha El Harachamim, Zocher Yitzurav Lechaim Berachamim, V'ne'eman Atah L'chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh HaKol. Have a seat. Just need to make sure this mic is on.
At this time, we turn to the Unatana Tokef. And before we move into that prayer, folks know there is a long and beloved Kolot tradition of asking Kolotniks who in some way have recently wrestled with either loss or illness to help us make sense, find some understanding, some reckoning, not resolution, but exploring of this prayer. And so it's our honor and blessing this morning. I'm going to invite forward to the bima Andrea Bernstein and Liz Shallett.
Shabbat Shalom, good Yantov. Can all of you hear me okay? So when Rabbi Miriam emailed us in June and said, would you speak to Kolot on the High Holy Days? We were like, yeah, sure. What an honor. And then I had a look and I was like, oh, that prayer. The Unatana Tovkef is one of the most difficult prayers for me, and I suspect it is for many of you. It begins, this is what we're all about to chant. On Rosh HaShanah it is written, on the fast of Yom Kippur it is sealed, who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of old age? Who will be taken before their time? How is this possible? Do we believe that today it is all decided? Who in the next year will drown or die by fire or in an earthquake or of heat stroke? And do we believe that through prayer and righteous giving we can transcend the harshness of this decree? What does that even mean?
2 years and 19 days ago, I was in the front section of a concert at Celebrate Brooklyn when I received a frantic call from my sister. My 26-year-old nephew, her son, Keelan Shallett, had died. "It's not possible," I yelled on the phone. "It's not possible," she yelled back. We were crying together from 3,000 miles apart. It was possible. It had happened. He was one of those taken before their time. Keelan was a bright star. He loved everything fabulous. He liked to wear outfits that matched and often wore a jacket, a vest, a cowboy hat, and a tie, all in the same color. He loved to laugh and play, and he worked at what he called a fashion assistant at a Goodwill. He loved his friend group. Until the day he died, they texted each other constantly. He loved his family, even though that could be hard to see at times. Keelan was a meth addict, and you never know if he was going to have a stupendous day or a horrible day, if he would belt out a Rihanna tune after dinner or disappear or end up in a hospital or in a jail. For the last several years of his life, he was working really hard at sobriety. Before he passed, he had a stable place to live, a job, and a tight community of recovering addicts that loved him and called him Kiki. It was a perfect new name for his new life, and then drugs took him. Today we are instructed. Tzedakah and teshuvah can temper the severity of the decree. But what does this mean?
We read, "Today it is sealed. Who will reach the ripeness of old age?" But death, as I have learned, is still somehow unexpected. When it comes when your father is 90 and dies in his beloved home in the Adirondacks with his children and grandchildren gathered in person or by phone, singing him into his final sleep. When he'd lived the exact life he'd wanted, teaching until his 90th birthday. And as a byproduct of that great unexpected tragedy, the pandemic, we had spent the last years and months and days of his life living closely together as a family, which our busy lives had always prevented us from doing prior. Death still sucks when it comes in its time. I had made peace, I thought. But really, his death was still shocking. I am still startled when I can't call him and ask him about which light bulb goes in the kitchen or some important piece of family history. In what way could righteous living or prayer have tempered this pain? It's a question that makes no sense.
Each of our losses are awful. Each of them reminds us how precarious life is. And that precariousness connects us to the larger grief we experience, the deaths that have been all around us this summer from climate change, from fire, flood, drought, heat, species extinction. Unlike an individual life and death, nature can renew itself, but we aren't letting it. How do we live in this world? About a year ago, my sister Randy, Keelan's mother, was diagnosed with stage 4 uterine cancer. And she underwent, during this past year, aggressive treatment. I flew to California several times. I helped her move into a new apartment, to drive her to treatments, to cook for her. I refused to think about the awful prognosis. And then just last week, I learned that she is cancer-free. This might not last forever, but we are going to live as if it can be for forever. So, this is how I think about these days of awe. We are giving ourselves today the gift of renewal and a new opportunity to take action, acting as if we can temper the decree, acting in community to galvanize public attention about climate change, believing we can make a difference even with our small steps. Tomorrow, some of us are going to the climate march, direct from services, and I really hope each of you can join us.
There's a play on Broadway, a musical, maybe some of you have seen it. It's called Hadestown. And at the very beginning, the song has these lyrics. You know what's going to happen. It's a tragedy. It's a sad song. To know how it ends and still begin to sing it again, as if it might turn out this time. Those are the words. Action, my dad used to say, is hope. It is not false optimism. It is a way of being in the world, of living our lives and telling stories as if they might turn out this time. Living in this way is the prayer we offer today. Shanah Tovah.
We continue on page 174 with the Unatana Tokef. Unatana Tokef Kedushat Hayom Vikon bechesed kisecha v'teshiv alav be'emet emet emet ki ata hu dayan hu mochiach v'yadei havaed v'chotei v'choteim v'sofer u'mona v'tizkor kol hanishkachot v'tiftach et sefer hazichronot u'me'alav yikareh v'chotam yad kol adam bo Shofar gadol itaka v'kol demamadaka yishama Malachim yachafezun v'chil rada yochezun v'yameru hinei yom hadin livkod asfat marom badin ki lo yizku v'necha Yavrun lefanacha kivnei maron kevakarat roed ro ma'avir tzono tachat shivto keim tavir v'tispor v'timna v'tifkod nefesh nefesh kol chai v'tachtov kitzba lechol bria ותכתוב את גזר דינם. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון.
On Rosh HaShanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass from this world? How many will be born into it?
Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time?
בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון.
Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning?
בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון.
Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted?
But through return to the righteous path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree.
Ay, 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 u'tshuva, u'tfilah, u'tzedakah, ma'aviri nedra ha'gezerah. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 I'll invite you to rise as you're able, and we'll continue with the Kedusha on page 184 as we turn again to the Ark. Kaddish et shimcha ba'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, lecha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai, mimkomo, echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu hu malkanu, hu Moshienu vehu yashmienu, berachamav le'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion ledor vador. Hallelujah, ledor vador nagid god lecha, ulenetzach netzachim kedushatcha nagdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed, ki el melech gadol v'kadosh atah. Uvechein tein pachtecha Adonai Eloheinu. We continue on our own for just a moment. Uvechein tein kavod Adonai Elohecha. Uvechein tein tzadikim yismochu yisharim yalozu. Page 192. V'timloch ata Adonai levadecha al kol maasecha, v'har Tzion mishkan kevodecha, u'v'yushalayim yirkodshecha, kagatu b'divrei kodshecha. Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion ledor vador. Hallelujah. Kadosh atah v'nora shemecha, ve'ein Elohim baladecha, kakatuv hayigva Adonai tzevahot b'mishpat, ve'el hakadosh nikdash b'tzedaka. Baruch atah Adonai HaMelech HaKadosh. The Amidah continues for a few pages, and again from page 208 to 220. And take time for these words, or the words of your heart or your soul on this day. We invite Ricky Blum to make your way to the bima when you are finished with your davening. davening, please do so. And we'll turn to page 216 as we sing this special prayer at the end of the Amidah, that we be written into the book of life. B'sefer Chaim, bracha v'shalom, u'farnasa tovah nizachem, v'nikatev lefanecha, anachnu b'chol amcha לחיים טובים ושלום. אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום. So we are honored to invite Ricky Blum to come up to the Bima. You can unmask if you're comfortable. He'll be over here. And as Ricky gives us a little bit of a talk, we also invite Roy Nathanson, Adam Lane, Ani Kisslinger, and Sarah Furholt to the Bima to get ready in a few minutes. Rena Staub-Fisher, Rachel Klepper, and T. Wise, our laners. Amy Blumberg, our darshan, and Anya Heller, who will be offering us Haftarah blessings. So, Ricky, it's up to you. This is good? And
This is good.
okay, taking off your mask?
Oh, I see. Oh,
That would be
I
great. So
forgot.
everyone can see your face. Welcome.
Oops. Well, you know this is going to be important, whoops, because I wore my lawyer drag. Shanah Tovah and Shabbat Shalom. My name is Ricky Blum. I only joined Kolot 2 years ago, but I have been Kolot adjacent for many years. When a friend invited me to Kolot's 20th anniversary celebration, I walked in the room and I realized that I knew about half the people there, including Rabbi Ellen Lippman, of course. So it was to Kolot that I turned a couple of years ago when I desperately craved community. At the end of 2020, my mother died after a long, lengthy decline, during which I had been her primary family caregiver, including through the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, we had a Zoom funeral and Zoom Shiva, and I buried her while my brothers were online across the country. I then cleaned out the New Jersey house I had grown up in, alone through the first 3 months of that journey. After finally selling the house in the summer of 2021, I returned to my Brooklyn life. At that moment, I needed community more than anything, and joining Kolot turned out to be one of the wisest decisions I had ever made. I was immediately embraced not only by Rabbi Miriam and Cantor Lisa, who was going through a similar grieving period, but by so many members as well. Through the Torah study group, which I attend, shall we say, religiously, I found myself soaking in words of Torah every week with a new group of online and now in-person friends. I also participated in the book club and in queer social events where, to use Shelley Weiss's term, the Jungens have taken me in. More recently, I've joined Cantor Lisa's singing circle, and I attend Kabbalat Shabbat and Shabbat services with some frequency, singing along with the Cantor's beautiful voice, together with a room full of people intentionally sharing the joys and the sorrows of life. It is in that intentional sharing of joy and sorrow that I have found the community that I was seeking. 2 years ago on Yom Kippur, the Yizkor service in the park offered a profoundly moving opportunity to share my sorrow with so many others, live and in person, after so much time in isolation. I have seen the Gemilut Hasidim Committee rally people behind a friend of mine in a time of need. I have celebrated birthdays, holidays, and other joys with Kolot members. To me, that kind of intentional, caring community is precisely at the core of the practice of Judaism. But community doesn't happen automatically. It requires people to build it and maintain it, not only organizing and leading events, but taking care of all of the logistics. And that all costs money. So on this day of renewal, I ask you to please do what you can to sustain the work that feeds our beloved community, so that it is there for you when you need it, and for others as well, whether in sorrow or in joy, or as Rabbi Miriam might say, when we are struggling with holding both, or as Rabbi Sami might say, when the two are mixed. Shabbat Shalom and Shanah Tovah to all of you. Thank you.
We are hoping all of our laners here. Rachel's here. We're looking for T is over there. And Rena, is Rena in the house? We're hoping Rena's here. She's here. Great. Beautiful. We're inviting our musicians out just to be here closer. We are going to turn to Avinu Malkanu on page 224. My book. I've lost my prayer book. Ah, here it is. You know it all by heart. I know it by heart. Ah.
On 224, Avinu Malkanu, rise as you're able in body or in spirit.
Avinu Malkanu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkanu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkanu, Chamol Aleinu ve'al ol Aleinu v'tapenu. Avinu Malkanu, Kalei daber v'cherev v'rahav me'aleinu. Avinu Malkanu, Malkanu, Kalei kol tzar u'mastin me'aleinu. Avinu Malkanu, Kotvenu b'sefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkanu, Chadesh Aleinu Shanah Tovah. Avinu Malkanu, Malei Yadeinu mi birchotecha. Avinu Malkanu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkanu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Asay manu, tzedaka v'chesed. Asay manu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masim. Asay T and Rachel to come up. T and Rachel. We're on the top of 228. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Halafim, Noser Avon l'Fesha v'Chata v'Nakeh, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Halafim, Noser Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Nakeh, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, V'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed l'Halafim, Noser Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Nakeh, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh v'nora Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, U'niromema Shemo yachdav. Oh, they can go. We're gonna go. Yes, yes, here, leave it right there.
You can have a seat. Listen, so if you got to kiss the Torah with your talis, take your tzitzit, and I want you to like wave it up to the folks on the balcony. It's for you. We love you. And the people at home, and the people at home. And you can, let's invent a new tradition. You can, pass it on to anybody at any point in the day, let's say. With that, so we are so blessed this day. We have so many fabulous speakers throughout all of our services, and we are blessed this morning that our drash for the Torah reading is coming from Amy Blumberg.
Shanah Tovah. You can hear me okay? I will try to project. Rabbi Miriam, Cantor Lisa, Rabbi Sammy, and to this vibrant, vital community. Thank you for trusting me with this honor. My whole adult life, the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, which many Jews traditionally read on the second day of Rosh HaShanah, and which we are reading today, has left me feeling sick and alienated. From my vantage point, God's gruesome command for Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac as a test of Abraham's love reveals to me a fearful, mistrustful, and unwell God. God's demand for proof of Abraham's devotion, ostensibly in order to fulfill the promises God has already made, feels to me emotionally and spiritually bankrupt, or at least a sign of grave mental illness. And on a personal level, this dynamic hits very close to home. I am a survivor of a father who suffered at the hands of his birth family and died by suicide, making impossible requests of me and my mom before his death. And so the story of the Akedah reminds me of brutal cycles of intergenerational violence and the restorative justice which we so badly need and in which I hope to conscientiously play a part. But aside from this, I've been asking myself, what is the purpose of the Akedah on this reflective, nourishing, holy day? On this Yom Hadin, I crave guidance and inspiration for the sacred labor of reconciliation and repair. Where is that in the Akedah? Well, after all of that surus, it turns out it's in the very first verse of what we'll be reading today, or sort of, the first inklings of it. Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ele v'ha'elohim nisa et Avraham, vayomer elav Avraham, vayomer hineni. Sometime afterward, God put Abraham to the test, saying to him, Abraham, he answered, here I am. Rashi interprets Abraham's hineni as an expression of meekness and readiness, an obedient, even eager answer of the pious. And until my most recent grappling with the text, that's basically how I'd heard it too. Knowing what comes next, I wrote off Abraham as blindly deferential, so unquestioning as to be willing to do conscious harm to other people, even his loved ones, if that's what God asked. But in preparing for this drash, the dramaturg in me must have eaten her Wheaties, because suddenly I remembered to be curious about the context. Sometime afterward. Sometime after what? The Akedah, Genesis chapter 22, is the conclusion of Parashat Vayera, a chapter in which God and Abraham unearth one another's limitations. God reveals to Abraham and Sarah that they will have a son, Isaac, whose descendants will become a great and populous nation. On the heels of this news, Abraham boldly tries to stimulate God's sense of justice, imploring God not to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah for the sake of the innocent people who surely live there. God acquiesces to Abraham's appeal, only to annihilate the cities anyway. And Abraham witnesses God's unscrupulous reversal. Soon after, Isaac is born, and Sarah presses Abraham to cast out his firstborn son, Ishmael, and Ishmael's mom, Hagar, leaving Isaac to be Abraham's sole heir. Abraham doesn't object in language, but the Torah tells us the matter distressed Abraham greatly. At this distress, a sign of potential dissent, God steps in, telling Abraham to do as Sarah says, reassuring Abraham that God will make a great nation of Ishmael too. And Abraham does the unthinkable. He rips his family apart. Holding all of this context close, I began to reconsider Abraham's hineni. Maybe "here I am" isn't a cry of devout faith. Maybe it's a plea for God to see him. Abraham must believe or hope that God is fundamentally fair and moral. How else could this defender of Sodom and Gomorrah and grieving father to Ishmael stick around? When God calls his name, Abraham, perhaps sensing a test at hand, reminds God, maybe instinctively, to witness him and everything that's already happened between them. Not "I'm here to do your bidding," but "here I am, me, who you already know." In Ramban's analysis of this verse, he notes that God only tests the righteous and never the wicked, asserting that God's tests aim to make the righteous more upright. I wonder, though, if Abraham is the one who is trying to make God more upright. Hineni. Remember who I am. Remember who you are. But Abraham's hineni does not awaken God to Abraham's already expressed devotion, and Abraham acts as though he will go through with God's command, though significantly, he keeps the goal of the trip a secret from Isaac and the two servants he brings with them. Days later, when Abraham sees the place God intended for this act, he tells his servants, "You stay here. The boy and I will go up there. We will worship, and we will return to you." We. Some rabbis interpret Abraham using the plural here as a sign that he plans to come back with Isaac's bones. Rashi digests this moment differently, stating that Abraham is prophesying here that both he and Isaac will return. I would like to go even further than Rashi and suggest that Abraham has God's number. Abraham sees that God is terrified and insecure, but God has already promised to make Abraham a great nation through Isaac and Isaac's descendants. God has already pushed Abraham to cast out his only other son, Ishmael. Abraham is praying that God will not make him go through with this sacrifice. He keeps humoring God with this test, trying to shield his son along the way, and giving God every opportunity to end this horror show so that he and Isaac can come down the mountain together. Walking alone with Abraham, Isaac cries, "Avi, my father." Abraham answers, "Hineni bni," "Here I am, my son." He lifts up the word he used with God before. He could have said yes or responded in any other way, but knowing that God is watching his every move, he underlines the word. He's replying to Isaac, but he's using the opportunity to nudge God. "I'm still here. Isn't that proof enough?" And in answer to Isaac's question about where the heck this sheep is for this impending offering, Abraham replies, "It is God who will see to the sheep for this burnt offering, my son." In my current reading, I am hearing Abraham here speaking again to God through his answer to Isaac. Abraham is pleading with God to send a sheep, a real sheep, for this offering. "It's not too late, God, for you to find uprightness again. The damage has not been done yet." In the next section, we see Abraham setting up the altar for the sacrifice, and the writers of the story give us every little detail. It's as if we're moving in slow motion, or as if Abraham is, trying to buy God time to do the right thing. He lays out the wood. He binds Isaac. He lays him on the altar on top of the wood. And then, Vayishlach Avraham et yado, vayikach et ma'achelet leshchot et bano. He sends out his hand and he picks up the knife. Finally, a messenger from God calls out Abraham. Abraham. And Abraham replies, Hineni. I'm still here. At long last, God somehow has the proof God needs and puts an end to the madness. Of course, I wish Abraham had refused to do God's bidding from the start. Maybe then he could have saved Isaac the unimaginable trauma of this event and prevented the rupture that happens between them following the Akedah. But tragically for their families, something about Abraham's relationship with God prevents him from that type of resistance. But also, I believe that with this reading, we can see in Abraham deliberate, compassionate tshuva, recognizing God's frightened test as the unwinnable game and illness that it is, but trusting in God's moral core, Abraham buys God time to return to God's self. And along the way, Abraham repeatedly, patiently reminds God that his very presence is all the proof he could ever really give of his love. What if we all sought each other's intrinsic goodness so deeply? How gentle would we be with one another then? And perhaps the most significant lesson as it relates to tshuva is Abraham's vulnerable generosity. Because when he says, "Here I am, witness me," he is also offering himself up as a witness. If I let you see me in my fullness, maybe I can try to see you in yours. And what path do we have towards restorative justice, healing of intergenerational wounds, and forgiveness, if not through seeing one another? Acknowledging each other's here-ness, the entire universe each one of us is carrying inside our beautiful, fragile frames. It won't be enough, but it could be the first step. And beginnings are important. Shanah Tovah. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Amy. And with those powerful and beautiful words, we turn to hearing Torah chanted. So we will be on page 238. For the Torah text, we'll have 3 Aliyot. The second Aliyah and the third Aliyah will be 2 group Aliyot. So we're going to share with you now what the themes of those will be so that you can begin to consider it and also begin to make your way to the bima before it is time. Meaning, while the first Aliyah is happening, we will invite you to come forward for the second group Aliyah, and the theme of which will be.
So the second Aliyah, as we just heard, was the journey to that place, to Hamakam. And without delving into the purpose of the journey, journeys are a part of our lives in so many ways. So I'm going to invite those who have ever been on a journey to some place with some other person, with someone close, a child, a parent, a sibling, a friend, a beloved, a mentor, a journey with someone to a place. Come for that Aliyah.
Beautiful. I will say now, before that second Aliyah, the third Aliyah, we're just trying to give you heads up because it takes a while to get up here. The third Aliyah will be if you want to say, Hineni, here I am, maybe without the test this time. So, and that Aliyah will be for being seen and seeing others. Okay, we are on page 238, and we turn to Torah.
תעמוד לכבוד העלייה הראשונה את החברה מורתנו הרב מרים בת הרב יצחק ואילנה אסתר לעלייה ראשונה. We call for the honor of this first aliyah, a colleague, friend, teacher, our sage, Harav Miriam, the daughter of Rav Yitzchak and of Ilana Esther.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Sorry. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayhi achar advarim ha'ele ve'ha'elohim nisa et Avraham vayomer elav Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer Kachna et bincha yechidcha asher ahavta Yitzchak velech lecha el eretz hamoria vehalehu sham leola al achad heharim asher amar elecha. Vayashkem Avraham baboker vayachavosh et chamoro vayikach et shenei ne'aravoto ve'et Yitzchak beno vayevakatze ola vayakom vayelech el hamakom asher amar lo Elohim Bayom Hashlishi Vayisa Avraham et Einav Vayaret Hamakom Merachok Vayomer Avraham el ne'arav shevu lachem po im hachamor vani vehanar nelcha ad ko venishtachave venashuva alechem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. A moment of a bracha for blessings. Blessings are the things we can share, that we give, and only find that we have more to give and more to receive. Misheperach Avotenu Avraham Yitzhak v'Yakov v'Imatenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bilha v'Zilpa Hu Yivarech et HaChavera Moratenu Harav Miriam Bat Harav Yitzchak v'Ilana Esther Bavur Shalta Hayam Lichvad Makam Lichvad HaShabbat v'Lichvad HaTorah v'Lichvad HaKila Kadosha Hazat Bavur Shamda Probetach HaKahal Ze Kama V'Kama Shanim V'avar et Hayamim HaNoraim V'Shabbatot V'Chagim Usmachat V'Tzarat Im Kehilata V'Matzta Makom B'Omek HaLev U'V'Pinat HaNeshama. May the Holy One, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, Rachel, Bilha, and Zilpah, give blessing to our teacher, Harav Miriam, the daughter of Rav Yitzchak, and Ilana Esther, who has come for an Aliyot to the Torah in honor of Shabbat and the New Year and this holy congregation. May we remember all these years that Rav Miriam has stood here in the midst of the community in times of all of the festivals and in times of celebration and times of sorrow, finding a place in the deep spots of the heart and in the collective periphery and image of the way Kolot Chayeinu has evolved for these years. Because for these years, the growth and evolution of Kolot has been the growth and evolution that came from the radiance in your eyes, the depth of vision in your mind and heart and soul, and from the depth and the truth of the way that you say Hineni to each individual and to the congregation and to the wider community, bringing together the vision of Tikkun Olam, of fixing all the corners of the world, the corners of Jerusalem, the corners of slums, the corners of the world that are dirty, that need to be clean. You have found a place to say Hineni. Even in a time when we think of transition, of ebb and flow, I know that I can speak for the Chevra of Kolot, that there is always the place for you to say Hineni, here, in this place, in this Kehillah. May you have blessings, latzet v'shalom, to go forth in peace, v'lachzor v'shalom, and always to come back in peace, knowing that this is indeed hamakam, that this is a place that you found and will never, ever go away. Okay. Now I hung out in Texas just long enough to get away with this. Y'all who know about journeys, Yamdu l'aliyah shenit kol eila shechazurim v'chashavim al nesiyat el makom. We call those remembering and imagining journeys to places near and far. Come close to the Torah, and if that is something you find in your heart, and for whatever reason coming close to the Torah does not work, hold your hand on your heart, but think that the inner peace, the journey, literally, of this Aliyah is yours. Yeah. Coming up slowly is okay.
For those on that side, you can come up on that side as well, through the door. Come all the way around, everybody. Come close.
Okay.
Rachel, come this way.
There are a couple of delegates, maybe, and then take the view. Either you touch the Torah, or a fringe of yours, or a hand touches someone who touched the Torah.
Phil? Chuet Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah. Amen.
Amen. Vayikach Avraham et atzei haolah. Vayasem al Yitzchak beno. Vayikach be'ado et ha'esh v'et ha'machelet. V'ilchu shnehem yachdav. Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham avi. Vayomer avihi. Vayomer hineni v'ni. Vayomer
Hine ha'esh v'ha'etzim v'yehaseh le'olah. Vayomer Avraham Elohim Yireh haseh le'olah v'ni vayelchu shnehem yachdav vayavohu el hamakom asher amar lo Elohim vayivein sham Avraham et hamizbeach v'yaroch et ha'etzim v'ya'akod et Yitzchak beno v'yasem oto al hamizbeach mimal ha'etzim v'yishlach Avraham et yado v'yikach et ha'machelet lishchot et beno v'yikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim Vayomer Avraham, Avraham, Vayomer Hineni, Vayomer El Tishlach Yadcha El Hanar, Val Ta'as Lo Me'uma, Ki Ata Yadati, Ki Rei Elohim Ata, Velo Chasachta, Et bincha et yechidcha mimeni.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נתן בתוכנו. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
So all of you, those standing literally surrounding Torah, those feeling close to it around this place of prayer, and in various places far out in the world of Zoom. Some journeys cover many, many, many miles. They don't always unfold the way we imagine. And sometimes our traveling companions, those we find along the way, or those that we took with us, become the sources of the deepest blessing. Sometimes a journey is very short. Perhaps for some of you, the inner ability to just think about coming close to Torah, that can be an enormous inner journey, overcoming whatever fears, whatever doubts may have existed in the past. There are journeys that bring us close to each other. And we are a people of journeys. When we take the Torah from the ark, we say, Vayehi b'nsoah ha'aran, because the very Aran, the very ark, journeyed with us. We travel. We are Ivrim, we are the Hebrews. La'avor is to cross over. We are the boundary crossers. May all contemplating, imagining, remembering, in the middle of undertaking journeys, know that journeys will, with God's blessing, bring us, in the end, to a place of peace and resolution. We pray that everyone traveling, all of you thinking of journeys, find sanctity in our gathering here and are guided one step further along the way by being close to Torah. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may that be God's will.
As these folks are finding their seats, we invite you up for the third Aliyah. If you would like a blessing, to say, Hineni, here I am. No tests. That's right, we can use both sides and swiftly. Oh my. It's like Naila.
Yeah, come. Come.
Sorry.
As this is the Hineni Aliyah.
Yeah.
Ayaka.
Ayaka.
Hineni.
Ayaka.
Hineni.
Here I am. Where are you? Hineni. Where are you?
Hineni.
Where are you?
Hineni.
Here I am. One more time. Ayaka.
Hineni.
Ayaka.
Hineni.
Ayaka.
Hineni.
Here I am. Come a little closer. Beautiful. Here, wait, hang on a second. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hambarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. Vayisa Avraham et einav, vayar v'hine ayil achar, ne'echaz basfach bekarnav, vayelech Avraham, vayikach et ha'ayil, v'ya'alehu le'olah tachat beno. Vayikra Avraham, Shem hamakom hahu Adonai yireh, Asher yeyamer hayom behar Adonai yireh. Vayikra malach Adonai el Avraham, shenit min hashamayim. Vayomer binishbati neum Adonai, ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh, velo chasachta et bincha et yichidecha. Ki varech avarechecha, veharba arbe et saracha kechochevei hashamayim, vechachol asher al sfat hayam, vayirash saracha et sha'ar oevav. Vehitbarechu v'zaracha kol goyei haaretz hekev asher shamata bekoli. Vayashav Avraham el ne'arav vayakumu vayelchu yachtav el be'er shava vayeshev Avraham bi'er shava.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu, baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
So who doesn't want to be known? And who feels like they're known? Maybe everyone and no one. I think we live in a world that has made us really suffer in this regard because recently there are so many opportunities online everywhere to say, see me, and no one sees. And maybe the more we put out, the less we are seen because we are changing and because it is so intimate and so vulnerable to really be seen. And I want to give a shout out to really what has been my other congregation, and that is the community of Al-Anon. Excuse me. Friends and family of folks who are in active addiction or former addiction in their lives. And that has really been my other congregation. Because what I have learned there is that there is nothing that you cannot bring to other human beings stripped of its shame. And that offering is so vulnerable and so human and so needed. The other thing I have learned in my other shul is as much as we want to be known, sometimes it goes first to God. And I say that in a community of doubters and atheists also, admitting that I myself am a believer. All of these things to say that sometimes we have to say it out loud to ourselves and to the planet and be received and heard to be grounded enough to then show it to other people and be seen. But what's the problem with that? What's the problem after what we just heard chanted? That God? That's what you want me to show myself to vulnerably? That? It's for real? No wonder that's not where we turn. I believe so deeply in process theology, in the idea that everything is change, in the idea that there is nothing so perfect as change. Let us let this God change as we want to change. Let us forgive this God as we want to be forgiven. Not right away, not in active harm, but one day. Because then what we do is we show ourselves to change, to that God, the God whose name is change, and we say, here I am. You knew me yesterday. I don't know who that will be tomorrow. See me. And that is holy encounter, and sometimes that is all we get, but it is more than enough. Amen. Folks can have a seat. So while the Torah is out, even as folks continue to step to their seats, we're going to continue with our service, and I'll invite Rabbi Sammy forward for the Mishaberach. Oh, sorry. Oh, yes.
The words around Hineni, looking to be seen, crack open our hearts. And we take a moment, because so many of us gathered here and in all the places out in the world of livestream. For so many of us, the abiding part of the cracks in our heart are the experiences of illness, of hurt, of harm, illness of the body, of our inner systems, illness and suffering and harm to our minds, to our existential well-being, to our hearts, to our emotions, to our souls. And we might hope for miracles, but we never depend on them. But we can pray. We can pray for healing. Refuah ha-nefesh, refuah ha-guf, healing of body and soul. We can pray that those trained in the disciplines of science, of medicine, of physiology, of mental healing, of psychology, those who prescribe drugs, those who administer them, those who support and care for us, that their work, their insight and wisdom will continue in love, and that added to that will be the power of Refuah, of healing, that can touch our heart and soul from the transcendent one, from the divine. I invite us to take a brief moment to summon in our inner eye, in our inner heart, those whose illness touches and tears at us, and that we pray together for healing.
Number 12.
At this time, I'm going to invite up Julie Weinberg Connors, Kieran Lettrick, Emmy and Kina Ikanda, and I'm going to also invite back up Anya. While those folks are making their way for Hagba and Galila and Haftarah in a moment, we're going to engage in a long-beloved Kolot tradition of Simcha celebration on this, the anniversary of a new year, the birthday of the world. So, every year we eat apples and honey. We let sweetness and pleasure in. We do it in hard times. We do it in good times. We bless it like our ancestors before us. So I invite you to wave or cheer or stand if any of the following categories apply to you. If you joined Kolot this year. Woo! All right. Yeah. If you just became the interim rabbi at a new congregation in Brooklyn. If you became B'nai Mitzvah or your child did. You did it. If you started at a new school, graduated, or were ordained. Yeah. If you started a new job or took a new risk in your work.
Wow, yeah.
If you moved to New York this year. Right, you got the spirit. They're still excited. I'm into that. I'm excited too. Sometimes I need to remember that though. If you performed a new piece of art or work or published a new piece of work. If you brought a new baby home. If you got married. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. If you got engaged or moved in with a partner. If you fell in love or just had a great time with someone or someones. Yes, have fun. If you took new strides in your Jewish journey and either converted or just deepened your Jewish practice in a new way this year. Yeah. If you organized an action, fought hard to get someone you believe in elected, or worked as part of a coalition to get new laws passed, which is actually quite a lot of you in this room. If you unionized your workplace. That's what's up. A lot of you did that. If you made it through this hard year and you just want to celebrate. Woo! Woo! We acknowledge that while we like to list these things out, it's just a list, and there is so much more that we could celebrate that is so far beyond this list. And because I believe in anonymity, we're not going to ask people to individually clap for this one, but I want to give a round of applause for everyone who celebrated in any way an anniversary of sobriety that was significant to you in this year. So give it up. We bless all of this sweetness. May it only overflow. Amen.
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 With that, we move to lift and put away and wrap the Torah. Kina, come forward.
Hi, Kina.
You can rise.
Yeah.
I was on page 246.
Hi, Emmy. We're going to come over here by the Torah. Come by the Torah. Oh.
Okay. Kina would like me to show it. It says Shanah Tovah. Yay! Yeah.
So pretty.
Amazing. Okay.
Wait, watch out. Yeah, yeah. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. Yalai la 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 la, yalai la 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 la, yalai la 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 la, yalai 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 la la la, You can have a seat, everyone.
We turn to Haftarah. We have a practice here that every year the blessings before and after Haftarah come from a recent B'nai Mitzvah student. So Anya, it is our pleasure to welcome you up to the Bima. We will hear Anya chant, and then I will offer the sermon for Haftarah, and then we'll hear Anya deliver the closing blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza b'divrehem hane'emerim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
I just have to get this off my chest. This is really from the heart and a more serious offering. And so I just want to say I think I should get credit for restraining myself from doing an impersonation of the rabbi in You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, because it's really just like on the tip of the tongue. So that's for later. That's for later. But now, we turn to the prophet Jeremiah. In this Haftarah portion, Jeremiah tells the wandering and dispersed Jewish people that one day the people will return to one another and to the promised land, an ingathering of exiles. Jeremiah speaks on behalf of God, saying, "They shall come weeping, and with compassion I will guide them. I will lead them to streams of water, by a level road where they will not stumble. Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and tell it on the coastlands afar. Say, He who scattered Israel will gather them and protect them as a shepherd his flock."
These words are included in the liturgy of our high holidays to highlight divine mercy and redemption during the days of awe. But the ingathering part, that can evoke complicated feelings. Some might empathize with the desire to return to a homeland or just to make a place feel like home, whatever that might mean. Some might feel confusion about what it means to talk about returning from exile when we have built vibrant Jewish lives here in Brooklyn and across the diaspora. And for others, there is anger because of the ways texts like this and this text itself have been used to justify the seizure of Palestinian lands and Palestinian homes. We can feel one or more of these things, maybe all at the same time. The stakes of talking about home and homelands can be high right here in New York City. We sit here on Lenape land, in a city with a housing crisis, in a city with a housing crisis where homelessness is criminalized, in a city full of immigrants and the descendants of immigrants and the descendants of former slaves brought here by force, where right now 100,000 migrants have arrived in crisis seeking asylum and are being told by the mayor that there is not enough room. Even though this is a city of immigrants and always will be, and even though so many city employees and government agencies and New Yorkers are doing everything in their power to truly welcome our new neighbors. This is our imperfect, beautiful, collective home. A home that needs a lot of work to make it more justified and more dignified for all who live here, not just some, for working class folks, for immigrants, both new and old, for people of color, for queer communities. And that work can only happen if we don't let cynical leaders pit us against each other, if we channel that divine protection from Jeremiah's vision and all step up to protect one another in mutual solidarity. How can Jeremiah's vision of redemption and safety help us to face the places where we live, help us to face this place, help us to face all the places around the world that we are materially connected to, whatever they may be, rather than only fixing our gaze on a faraway, idealized homeland? I find hope in the notion of diaspora that the scholar Daniel Boyarin sets out in his book, A Traveling Homeland. Boyarin writes that the Talmud, the Jewish oral tradition of debate and Torah interpretation, religious law, and theological discourse, is a Jewish diasporist manifesto, that it is the homeland we have carried with us. If, as Boyarin says, the Talmud is our traveling homeland, then perhaps we can interpret our Jewish notion of return in Jeremiah and elsewhere as returning to the homeland of tradition. Boyarin reminds us that diaspora is part of the very fabric of Judaism. Jews have always lived many places, and Jews have always, in those places, had at least two homes: the homeland of tradition and practice that we carry with us, and the home we make in the places where we live. And for many families, including many families here today, especially multi-faith families and multiracial and multinational families, we mean many places when we say homelands. We don't all mean the same place when we say homelands, and we can mean many places. Boyarin argues that diaspora can, of course, mean exile, trauma, deep, deep trauma, and a yearning to return to a place. It means that for so many refugees and so many survivors of war across the globe. But diaspora does not mean only one thing. It can mean many things. Diasporism can also mean a positive hybridity of multiple cultures beyond borders connecting. And he argues that this hybridity of interconnected communities can also be beautiful. I find this moving because next week on Yom Kippur, another major prophet, Isaiah, will remind us that it is our spiritual obligation to look at the material world, to break the material bonds of oppression we may witness wherever we see them.
Perhaps when we read Jeremiah and Isaiah together with Boyarin's notion of homeland, we are left with a vision where we carry our homeland spiritually and fight for justice materially across borders in all the many places we live and are connected to. I'm also inspired by Boyarin's writing because he reminds me that positive feelings about diaspora, when we define it as bonds beyond borders, is not a new idea. It is as old as Judaism itself. It's true, very true, that diaspora Judaism took off after the temple fell in 70 CE. The rabbinic project was seated in Babylonia, present-day Iraq, even before then. That's the part people don't always know, that the project of the Talmud began before the temple fell. The early rabbis traveled to Babylonia by choice. There, Boyarin argues they felt Talmud and Torah could be studied more easily. He doesn't say why, and my best guess is because perhaps they were further away from the authority of the priests. Then, when the temple did fall and was destroyed, and there was chaos and trauma and pain, the rabbis were all that was left. And they continued to build something portable and dynamic and lasting out of the destruction and chaos. What does all that mean? It means, in essence, Judaism as we know it was born in the diaspora and not in the temple. Without the Talmud, without diaspora Judaism, there would be no synagogues, no tradition of debating text, no prayer as we have come to know and understand it. As the great 11th century Spanish Jewish scholar and poet Shmuel Hanagid wrote, "I set the Talmud at the head of my words. It is my birthplace and land of origin." But what if this Talmudic homeland doesn't feel like home? Or put another way, if Jewish tradition is our homeland, what do we do if we don't live there year-round? Maybe we visit twice a year. Maybe. Maybe when we visit this homeland twice a year, it is awkward because we do not know the language or the customs. I was like, maybe what would the embassy? We don't know. We are visiting. I most relate to Jeremiah's yearning for an end to exile when I consider the elements of our tradition I feel far from. The parts of our tradition I yearn to be closer to, but was told are not for me. The rabbis who taught me to love Torah and Talmud in my childhood, they also taught that it would never be mine as a woman, not fully in the same way it was theirs. And there are so many reasons people might feel like the tradition is a place they are in exile from, a place they yearn to travel to but don't know exactly how. Tradition, then, is like any homeland, beautiful and very imperfect. I yearn to have a real relationship with this place of tradition, not romanticized, not disparaged, and not out of my reach. Today, when I feel far away from the tradition and I yearn from some closeness, the antidote is to just keep learning, to study something. To study something Jewish, be it Jewish history or folk practices that were never canonized, never uplifted in the way that the Talmud was, to find teachers of Jewish meditation or writers of secular Jewish thought, and sometimes to learn Talmud out loud with a friend. This is an oral tradition. It has always needed new voices to keep speaking it into being. And so in that spirit, I share these words from the Talmud, Tractate Brachot 8a, that I learned from my friend and chavruta Leni Solomon. It reads, Rabbi Chia bar Ami said in the name of Ula, since the day the temple was destroyed, the Holy One has only one place in the world, only in the 4 cubits of study alone. Centuries later, the Ishbitzer Rebbe interpreted these words, saying that it means if a person sanctifies their place, the place where they are, through 4 cubits of study, the Kedusha, the holiness of the Holy Land itself, is activated in that place. Meaning that wherever we study, wherever we engage in deep, holy study. 4 cubits of Kedusha, which is roughly 6 feet of holiness, is activated all around us. Think about that right here, 6 feet around each of you, as I have just taught you some piece of the tradition, 6 feet further and further and further of holy, holy place. We make a promised land wherever we study. That is what he's saying. Whatever your orientation across this community may be to Israel-Palestine, all of us are right now sitting in this room in one of many different Jewish diasporas. And holiness, this text says, is possible right here. The place wherever and whenever we learn is sanctified, not dominated, not owned, not ours alone, but sanctified. May this be a year of feeling at home in your Jewish learning, in trying again with your Jewish learning. May you feel sanctified in all forms of learning that feel truly holy to you. May it be a year of learning to organize better and smarter and sharper in the places where we live and are connected to, including right now to make this place a more welcoming home for our asylum-seeking neighbors. May no one be displaced from their homes or made smaller because of our holy texts or anyone else's. And may we set this tradition before us as our beautiful, imperfect, traveling homeland. May we carry it with us. May we keep changing it. May we let ourselves be changed by it. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים, ועל יום השבת הזה, ועל יום הזיכרון הזה, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפית כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה, אדוני,
ברוך וברוך שמו,
מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש השבת, וישראל, ויום
הזיכרון. Amen. We're going to invite everyone to rise as we turn to the Aliyot, page 276. You can stay for a second. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levado. Hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lecho chasidam, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. Eitz chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tom cheha meushar derachea darchenam v'chol netivateha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Kaddish, stay standing as we turn to the Aliyot, page 287. Alinu l'shaveach l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula l'yotzer bereshit, shehu nata shamayim v'yosed haaretz, u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim himahal, u'shchinatu zo begovhe meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, v'anachnu karim, ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Next page. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo echad, u'shemo echad. You can have a seat.
So I'm going to invite up Cece Flory and Eve Feldberg, Sarah Furholt, and Raya to all begin making their way.
We come to Kaddish Yatam, the words of Mourner's Kaddish that speaks not of death or of mourning, but of holiness, of Kedusha, of sanctity. And the grammar, the word Yit Kadal means let it grow. And we believe and we affirm by reciting Kaddish that no matter the tear within us, in our heart, in our community, in our family, among our friends, and in the world, that it is in the embrace of holiness that we have the possibility to move forwards. I remind us that in 10 days from now on Yom Kippur, come Yizkor, we invite everybody to bring a photograph of those who have departed this life, those who have died, that remain in our hearts. And following the custom of Kolot, we invite those here, as you are able, and also those in whatever place our words are being streamed to rise as you name losses. And if you want, please, those in live stream, add those words into the chat. And we think first of those losses for which we are in any part of the cycles identified in our traditional homeland of 7 days, of 30 days, of a year. If you're in any of those places, take a moment to rise, share a name aloud to yourself, and also the yahrzeit, the time of year, recalling those whose death was close to this day in years gone by. Holding them in our hearts, for those whom it is your personal custom to rise in body or spirit, please do so, and we turn to these ancient words that invite us to affirm holiness. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'agalah u'vizman kari v'yimaru. Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam L'almei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitaleh V'yithalal Shemei Dekudsha B'richu La'elah La'elah Mikol B'yachata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechamata Damiran Bi'alma V'yamaru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya. V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. V'yamaru. Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mramav. Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. V'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel. V'yamaru. Amen.
Amen.
And we invite all those able who wish to rise for the words, Zichronam Livracha, may our memories bring blessings.
Zichrono livracha. Zichrono livracha. Zichrono livracha. We are blessed, remembering you. Zichrono livracha. Zichrono livracha. Zichrono livracha. We are blessed, remembering you.
You can have a seat. We turn now to what will be the final movement of our service, and that is shofar. So we will hear a kavanah, words to bring us in to receive shofar, the shofar blasts themselves, and then our closing songs. It is my blessing to invite Cece and Eve to offer us a kavanah to bring us into the shofar.
Thank you. Shanah Tovah. I'm a first grader, and you've all been sitting. First grader, I'm not a first grader. Not a first grader. But I am a first grade teacher, and you've all been sitting for a long time, so I can't stop myself from saying quickly while we share our words. You could take some deep breaths, or stretch in your seats, or give yourself a hug and tell yourself, I can do this. You're almost done. As the cycle of the year begins again, the shofar calls us to an elemental, almost primordial place. And in this spirit, I invite you to think about water, the stuff of life. Rivers and streams and creeks and brooks, oceans and fjords and lakes and ponds, sweat and morning dew in a tucked away cove. As I reflected on this Elul, I kept thinking about and dreaming about water. And as I got ready to sit at my laptop, not very many days ago, and write these words, water came to mind. Eve and I shared a glass as we wrote together, and I soaked a hurt toe in a bowl of it full of salt. And so I tried to follow that thread, which led me here. There are so many corny things that people could say about water, but I often find that within some people's discomfort of the banal sit a series of possible truths like these. Water can be refreshing and cleansing and renewing. It can be dangerous and mysterious and overwhelming. It can be, like people, full of contradictions. Kabbalistic mystics explain that water can teach us how to be submerged and to let go, and how to absorb something that is greater and larger and deeper than our individual selves. Within these reflections, I think there could be a moment to think about what water could call us to do and reflect on this year. If we imagine ourselves submerged, like our previous hurts and harms are submerged at Tashlik, like the first sip of water after a long Yom Kippur fast, like our bodies touching the sea after basking a little too long in the sunlight, what feeling emerges? What can you embrace? What can you let go of? What can you commit to doing more of to create those feelings of abundance, of love, of safety and buoyancy and freedom for all of those around us?
I remember learning that the sound of the shofar is supposed to be a call to wake up and pay attention. But pay attention to what? The three sections of the shofar service link the present, past, and future. In a few minutes, when we hear the shofar, perhaps we can allow its sounds to bring our attention to the ways in which the past, present, and future are all held at once in this liminal time in the cycle of the year. When we turn our attention to the present, we might take stock of how we feel in this very moment, the feeling of the air in our lungs or the rustle of pages around us. We might take stock of our lives. Do we feel content, fulfilled, safe? Or, and this surely connects to our individual and communal lives, we might take stock of the state of the world around us and all that feels broken. When we turn our attention to the future, we might consider the Unatana Tokef, a prayer all about the future that for some reason reads almost as passive. On Rosh HaShanah, it is written. On Yom Kippur, it is sealed. Who will live? Who will die? By the time we get to Yom Kippur, it's already decided, and we have to spend the rest of the year just finding out what has already been predetermined. But I invite us all to let the shofar wake us up to the reality that we can, and really must, reject this sense of passivity. I know we can do it this year because thousands and thousands of people, just like us, all around the world, committed to action in the year that has now come to a close. Just look at the 2-decade-long struggle led by indigenous activists in Ecuador that just won a total ban on oil drilling in the Amazon. Or the hundreds of everyday people organizing tirelessly with a diversity of tactics to prevent the construction of a $90 million dystopian police training facility in Atlanta under the banner Stop Cop City. Or the working class coalition that organized to win the Build Public Renewables Act here in New York State, a huge step toward winning a Green New Deal. Or the thousands of workers on strike right now, from nurses to writers, performers, and now auto workers, standing up for their own lives against corporate greed. Turning our attention to the past can help us see who we can be, individually, collectively, and in the future. Is there an organization that you are ready to join, a contribution you have been waiting to make? Maybe you will answer the earlier invitation to come to tomorrow's climate march. Or maybe you will join me and many of our fellow congregants fighting to pass the historic Not on Our Dime legislation to end tax cuts for organizations here in New York that send millions of dollars every year to fund the ongoing and violent displacement of Palestinians by Jewish settlers, many of whom come from here in Brooklyn. Or maybe something else that you are dreaming of that you will tell all of us about. May we all reach deep, feeling the past at our backs, the present under our feet, and a more just world held in our collective vision of the future. Shanah Tovah.
We are on page 206. We invite you to rise as you're able in body or in spirit, in person or at home.
Hi. Just want to make this. Going to make sure this mic is on. Yep. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
We start in the present. What do you need to listen to? What do you need to awaken to? The calls.
Tekiah. Shevarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shevarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Trua. Tekiah.
The Alter Rebbe said, "There are gates in heaven that cannot be opened except in melody and song." For this next set of blasts, may the piercing sound of the shofar remind us of the Torah beyond words. And the calls.
Tekiah. Shevarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shevarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Trua. Tekiah.
You can turn to the last set of calls just to follow along before the rabbi starts on page 285 and 4.
As was just said, the shofar moves us from the present, then back to the past, and then into the future. May we listen to the voices of the present. May we listen to the voices of the past closely enough to hear echoes of some kind of redemption, some kind of greater liberation and wholeness beyond our time that we can bring into being right now. And the calls.
Tekiah. Shevarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shavarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Trua. Tekiah Gedolah.
Hayom harat olam, hayom harat olam, hayom harat olam, hayom harat olam. Yalla da 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 da, ay ay yalla da, yalla da 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 da. Hayom harat haolam, hayom harat haolam. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, arashat sifateinu yerav lefanecha el ram benizar. Arashat sifateinu yerav lefanecha el ram benizar. Maybe du mazin mabit, du makshib lechol tekiyateinu. Utkabel berachamim, berachamim uvratzon, seder shofroteinu.
Brett, make your way forward. You can have a seat. We have just a few announcements before our closing song. I'm going to invite Brett, our fabulous executive director, forward.
Hey everybody, Shanah Tovah. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for bearing with us and your patience. And this is just a wonderful gathering. Wonderful to be with you all. I have to tell you something. And you can see from the smile on my face that it amounted to nothing. And there's nothing to worry about. But I have to tell you something. About an hour, 15 minutes ago or so, we learned that someone had called in a bomb threat to the police on the corner of 8th Avenue and 10th Street in Park Slope, which of course is the corner where Church of Gethsemane is and where we normally have services. It turned out to be nothing. Apparently there was a bag left on a bench outside on that corner. The person who left it called the police saying there was a pipe bomb in it, but it turned out there was nothing in it. We do not know, I emphasize we do not know if we were targeted in any way, but it was on that corner. Park Slope Jewish Center, obviously nearby, they locked down when they heard. But again, it turns out it was nothing. I just wanted to inform you all of that. We know nothing more than that now, and of course we will keep the community informed as we learn more, but that's what we know for now. Thank you.
With that.
Any questions before we conclude?
No.
Thank you, everybody. Really, it turned out to be nothing. Happy New Year.
Well,
Call Shofar.
okay,
All right, hang on.
so I'm sure that I'm just processing this as you are. I'm sure that folks are going to process this in different ways and that there will be conversations and questions to come. For what it's worth, though, I want to preserve what we just created together of all these last hours and to let folks try to conclude our service and to move into the rest of this sacred day. So if you can, I want you to just exhale. We made something very, very beautiful together these last hours, and I want to also honor that and lift that up and remember all of the beautiful words and songs that you heard this day. Let those be the loudest thing in your ears and in your hearts. And so maybe in that spirit, I'll say, the only announcement I'll say is look at the website for everything. And you can also check the website to see in the unlikely event of a thunderstorm or really extreme rain, then our outdoor services, Shofar service tomorrow would be moved to Zoom. All other things, please.
That looks good.
What's that?
It looks
That
good.
looks good. Please move, for all the other things, look to the website. We're going to move to our closing song, which is number 14, Kol Shofar.
Everybody pull out your shofarot. Kol Shofar. Kol Shofar. The voice of the shofar.
The voice of the shofar.
Leading us home. I'm going to raise it. Kol Shofar.
Shofar.
Kol Shofar.
Kol shofar.
The voice of the shofar.
The voice of the shofar.
Leading us home. One more time. Kol Shofar. Kol Shofar. The voice of the shofar. Leading us home.
Shanah
Shanah
Tovah.
Tovah. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, Lord. That was great. You guys did great. And amazingly, way to end. That was unfortunate.
I don't, yeah, I wonder, but I